Greetings, welcome to and/or welcome back to my YouTube page. Hi, hello, I'm Fire Lotus the Witch, and if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe. So, today we're going to have a discussion on altars and some thoughts that I have about them. Alright, so what is an altar? An altar is a designated single or multiple place, small area that is dedicated to your practice or to a deity, to a spirit, to yourself even. It can be literally anything. I've used a lockbox as an altar. I've used a shoebox as an altar. I've used a notepad as an altar. I've used a book as an altar. I've used a tree outside as an altar. If you haven't already, Christopher Pinzak, an amazing author, they have an entire book series, and it's called The Temple of Witchcraft. And in the first one, they actually teach you how to make a mental altar, to the point where they teach you throughout the book that you basically don't need all the tools and everything like that. Tools in general, depending on your practice and depending on how you see it, primarily is just a way that you can kind of combine physical with energetic. Specifically, it's to help you direct that energy. All right, so an altar can be literally anything. In front of me right now is my main altar, one of them, and it's literally on top of a dresser. The other one hanging over here is literally just a little shelf that has a mirror, and it's my ancestor altar. I have a honey jar altar. I have a smaller altar over here. And I also wanted to say, you don't necessarily have to have all of these different altars. Look at your altar as you look at yourself. It is going to grow. It is going to change. But I wanted to kind of also address a couple of other stereotypes in the witchy community, and in my words, it's also misinformation as well. So, for one, there's a specific way to set up your altar. Now, if you are on a specific path, we're going to say, for the sake of this conversation, Wicca, then technically, yes, they have a traditional way that they set up their altars, and other paths do too. So, if you are on a specific path, then by all means, if you feel the call to do it by the book, do it by the book. But it doesn't have to. There is no right or wrong way to set up an altar. You will see online, of course, some witches' altars, to some, would say it's chaotic and cluttery as fuck. Hi, I'm one of them. I have a lot going on my altar, but that's just how my brain works. And in a way, our altars are a reflection of us, the literally spiritual side of us, in a way, depending on how you view that. And when I first started, I got excited when I used to set up these small altars. I used to move a lot. And I would take pictures of them. And of course, I would wind up sharing them into groups and other places on the webs. And I wish I could have had somebody tell me this. If you are not ready to be able to handle some of the opinions that people will have, and trust me, the people of the interwebs, they're going to have opinions, all right? They're going to tell you you did this wrong. They're going to tell you you did that wrong. They're going to tell you to take that away, or you can't add that deity next to that deity. Just tell them to fuck off, okay? Straight up, fuck off. You want to do that politely? Thank you so much for the opinion that nobody asked for, but you can keep that to yourself. There is no right or wrong way to make an altar. So just know that. If somebody tells you you're doing it wrong or to remove this, don't, okay? Because it's your altar. It's not their altar, okay? Okay. If at any point in time you put something on your altar or you set something up, whatever spiritual energy you work with, whatever you work with on the other side, they'll let you know if they like something or don't like something. I've had my familiar that's no longer with us. He's passed away. He passed away last year. Year before. Wow. I think it was last year. Or not the point. I've put something to like be a memorial for him on my altar, and I shit you not, it literally, the way that it fell, it literally looked like a cat had jumped up and like knocked it off in a rush. There were no cats in the house at that point in time. So trust me, that they will let you know. Now, if you ask that question, well, Lotus, how do they let you know? Stay tuned and go ahead and subscribe, because I will be making a video on that, or at least how I experience spirits and deities and so forth and so on. Depending on, yeah, I'm gonna make a video on that soon. All right, very soon actually. But it can be a necklace. I've been in a situation to where literally I only had a necklace. And also with that, your altar does not have to look quote unquote like witchy, as in you don't have to have the evil eye or pentacles or everything like that. If you were still in the broom closet, or if you were in an environment to where you could not display that, there are a lot of alternatives that you can do. All right. Again, you do not have to use witchy symbols in order to set things up. I know a few people, a few witches, and they still do it to this day, where they will actually just randomly go about their day, and if they find something, they attach it to their altar. I know people, I'm one of them, I've used Pokemon before. I currently have a stuffed small little dragon that is a share between Loki and my familiar Bubbers who passed away. So you can literally have anything on your altar, all right? Now, again, if you are in a specific tradition and or a specific path, you may hear otherwise. But again, that's because it's the path that you're on. You know what I mean? I don't want to step on anybody's toes that are not in a traditional, or you know what I mean, that are not in a path or something like that. So all my Wiccans out there, again, there's nothing wrong with being Wiccan. Not all Christians are the same. Not all witches are the same, all right? That goes for Wiccans too. But please keep your thoughts to yourself, all right? This is not one of those videos where I'm asking your opinion, okay? This is my opinion. You can either take it, like it, or just don't say anything. Anyways, because what do I always say? We can always agree to disagree. I also want to I'm learning how to edit our set, lighting, and shit like that. Anyways, but yes, altars can change, and I will periodically change. I also encourage you to as well. Some, and I tend to do this too, will change it around the season or the will of the year. That is okay if you do not follow the will of the year, or if you honor or work with the seasons. You will know when you need to change it. Well, Lotus, why would I change it? So, me being a content creator, very rarely, I used to a lot, but I've slowly backed off from doing it. If I were to show my altar like in full light where people can fully see everything, now I know some witches are not going to agree with this, and it's a 50-50 depending on the particular witch and or people that I know in my life, if I would do this or not. But for one, you have to think, because you're always going to hear, don't post your altar online because other witches can fuck with you. How, Nancy? Sarah? How? How can they fuck with you? It's just like when somebody uploads, like, say, and there's nothing wrong with uploading these photos, but the way the community reacts, it's like you find some weird shit in the woods or on your front door, and you take a picture of it, and you're asking, you know, hey, what does this mean? There are literally over hundreds of thousands, if not billion, different alternatives that those each individual ingredients that made up that spell bag could mean. Yes, you can intuitively read it, but unless you are the actual practitioner who made it, nobody would ever know. What does that have to do with your altar? To a random stranger, whether you have symbols, candles, it doesn't fucking matter unless you have it in like plain lettering written out what you're doing. Nobody knows what the fuck is there. Nobody knows why you have that crystal slightly left 3 fucking inches away from that jar. Nobody knows. Okay? They may be able to see, okay, you work with Lilith. Okay, you work with Loki. That's it. Okay? Even if you use a rune in spell work in a video, nobody truly knows what the actual meaning is unless you just flat out tell them. So in other words, would I give a tour of my altar in like really, really good detail? No the fuck I would not. Would I share it in a picture? Yes. But say I did a live and for some reason my altar was in it, whether purposely or accidentally, then I would think about, because there are a lot of people that could see it, I would think about going and changing it, all right? And now I learned this, believe it or not, from my mother, who is not a practitioner in any way, shape, or form. But periodically she would change, like seasonally, we would change the entire house. So, like, we'd redo the living room, redo my room. You know, some people would call that feng shui. I don't practice feng shui, and I don't know enough about it to actually talk about it. So we're not going to call it that. But witchy-wise, this is why you do that. If somebody has seen the layout of your altar, they may be able to fuck with you depending on how experienced and or what they're into. Yes, you can. The reason I say that is because everybody has a energetic fingerprint of somewhat. That's the easiest way to explain what I'm talking about. And if you know how to read certain things, you can track people, and there's a lot of shit you can do on an energetic level, all right? But anyways, you would redo that. Say I had a friend over or a person that I thought was my friend, and they've seen the entire layout of my house, right? They know where everything is at. They could use that to their advantage if they were to try to throw something at me or something like that. It's just like I mentioned in I think I talked about it in that last video. I don't know. Anyways, it's just like birth charts. Be cautious with sharing your birth chart online, because your birth chart is literally a single snapshot of the galaxy, of the universe, we're going to say, of the stars and the planets at the exact moment you came into this world, right? Depending on what you know, especially regarding astrology, and you mix that with witchcraft or just in general astrology, you can do a lot with that. You can do a lot to break that down or build that up. I'm talking specific shit that you could put into play to completely fuck with somebody you've never even met. So be cautious, all right? The more information somebody has about you, the easier it can be used against you. I know that sounds fucking paranoid. Welcome to the witchy community. Unfortunately, it's not always like this. Or fortunately, it's not always like this. And unfortunately, you never know what community it is. Because our communities is just like how I say what paganism is. It's a tree, right? Except for when you hear somebody say a community, it could literally be an entire orchard that is connected to a bigger tree that is connected to more orchards. All right, it could just go on and on and on. All right, and say if you scroll through witch talk, completely different than Facebook witchy groups, although they're getting very similar. Vice versa with the Instagram witches and all these other subsections of witches. All right, even in modern day, like in real life, not online. But a lot of people, they may not even have witchy communities around, so what do? They use online, okay? All right, back to the altar stuff. Sometimes the squirrel just jumps out of his box, and I gotta put him back in it. So, yeah, periodically changing it, not only are you rejuvenating the energy, you're also changing it, clearing it out, and completely redoing it. Plus, like I said before, our altars, to me at least, is an extension of us. Therefore, we're going to change and grow within a year's time. Why would your altar not either? You see what I'm saying? Okay. Second one, do I have to have an altar if I work with my ancestors? No, you don't really. What if I don't have this? If you do not have pictures, for one, if you do not know who your ancestors are at all, because there are multiple situations that could happen where somebody is like that. I suggest, whether you do tarot or not, so in other words, just in general, anybody could gain from this book, but it's called, I think it's called Ancestral Grimoire. I'll try to have it linked below. It's specifically for tarot and oracles, because, like, if you follow this book using an oracle deck, tarot cards, and or even playing cards, at the very end of it, you're basically going to have, I think it's 1 to 3 notebooks where you've learned stuff directly through divination from your ancestors. You can do the same in an ancestral practice. I know I worked with some of my ancestors, and I mean ancestors. I've never met them. I was not born when they were alive, but I can pick up on the foods they like. Pecan pie is one of them, like the little small round pecan pies that come in the little tin thing. They absolutely love those. Coffee, absolutely love it. Whiskey, bourbon, completely love it. But again, everybody's ancestor is different, but you can do that. And if you want to know how to work with your ancestors, or a way that I started at least, and believe it or not, either today or yesterday was the actual day that I got the psychic reading that kind of helped this course to where I am now, which is fucking mind-boggling. But I have a video that's called the Ancestral Challenge. It's basically for 30 days. Go check it out. It's something that anybody can do. You don't have to go out and buy shit. Literally all you need is 5 or 10 minutes. That's it. And through the course of 30 days, but once you start it, you're not going to really want to stop it. You start to open up to your ancestors to be able to communicate with them and your spirit team or spirit guides. There we go. Anyways, back to the altars. Like my mom, for an example. Again, she is not a practitioner of any sort in the way, but she's Southern. The reason I say that is because my mom was one of those people who had pictures of every single family member cased all over the wall. But she actually has a coffee table that literally is just pictures of past people that have passed away. And she has a couple of LED candles on it. And I'm like, that's your ancestor altar. And she goes, I explained it to her, and she kind of didn't like it, but at the same time, it's a memorial, basically. Same goes for there. Do I do workings on that altar? If you want to, that's completely up to you. It's your practice. What if your ancestor, you will know if your ancestors do not want to partake in anything that you are currently doing. Okay, or will do in the future. They will let you know on that one. 100%. All right. But yeah, it can be anything. I have multiple altars outside. What do those altars look like? It's a tree. There's a tree, there's a cinder block, and there's a little dish. That's it. Again, it does. If you want to make it look witchy as fuck, you totally can. But you don't have to. It's not a criteria. And with outside altars, I like to add things that an animal cannot get a hold of and it could hurt them, and or it's not going to damage the property, the land, or anything like that. What I mean by that is, I know in witchcraft, it's the circle of salt. Salt can be extremely bad for soil, all right? You could fuck your entire soil up if you add too much salt to it. So you're harming the environment. There are so many other natural alternatives. Go look it up. There's your homework for tonight. All right. But, yeah, typically if it's an outside altar, I do not like adding excess things to it. I just like it natural. When it comes to offerings, sorry, it's taken me until 17 minutes into this to get to that. Offerings, how long do you leave them? It all depends on who you're working for, what you're leaving it for, and your own intuition, all right? I used to work in a second room in our hallway. It's technically still my magic room, but I have to redo it. I left 4 biscuits that I'd cooked. I'd recently learned, at this point in time in my life, I'd recently been taught how to make homemade biscuits. And I went into how everybody is with sourdough, that's how I was with biscuits. We were having biscuits like every single fucking night, to the point where I had like 3 packs of just frozen biscuits because I was cooking them so often. But I put them on an altar for the ancestor altar in there, and bout of depression hit me. So like I just completely went down. Went back a few weeks later, and the motherfuckers had like basically become a rock. They like not calcified. They didn't rot. They didn't mold. They just became like rocks. So to me, that was extremely accepted. How often do I change out my water? If it starts to get a little weird, depending on what you're doing, all right? If you're working with an infernal, then if you set it out altering and it starts to mold and rot, it could be a good sign. There's a lot that goes into this, all right? But don't overcomplicate it. And you'll know, before you ask, well, how will I know? You will know. You will know when it's not accepted or something like that. And if it's not accepted, that doesn't mean you've done anything wrong, all right? I've had multiple different types of offerings just not fucking accepted. Maybe they were in a mood. I don't know. But that's okay. It's all about learning and growing. As long as you are respectful to any being that you work for, depending on what you're doing, work with, depending on what you're doing, you'll be completely fine. Like, straight up. But yeah, again, if you want to go out and get athames and wands and crystals, that's great. It's not necessarily a necessity. Now, I would potentially say, yes, you should have some type of tools, especially if you were first working, as in you are all the research and all the information you're doing, you're actually taking that and starting to apply that by like actually casting spells, connecting with the energies and all that. Then yes, I highly recommend tools. You do not have to go out and spend like hundreds of thousands of dollars on athames and wands and all this shit. You can build up to that if you want. Start with the basics. My very first one, and I hope and pray this is not disrespectful, it was like a chopstick. It was given to me. It looked all fancy, and it was chopstick, and I only had one. I used that as a wand for the longest time. You can also use your fingers, all right, your hands. Athame, it can be a butter knife, a steak knife, a butcher knife, the buck knife, any type of blade. Now, depending on your path, like in Wicca, I believe there's like 3 different athames, depending on what they're doing. One for slicing bread, one that's dull, and then another one is for like carving or cutting. But again, that's up to you. Now, I personally, I have an entire collection of athames. Let me know if y'all would like to see that. And then I have a cup that I got from Dollar General, cobalt blue cup, glass wine cup without the like thing. Yeah, $1. Dollar General. Dollar General, Family Dollar, your friend. Okay, what happens if I can't get out to Dollar General, Family Dollar? If you can, Amazon. If not, use what you have at your house. Use what you have at your house. Okay? When you can, get out and go. Instead of going to Walmart, Dollar General, if it's out of your way, fuck it. Go to an antique store, flea market, yard sale. You can find amazingly cheap things there, and holy shit, a lot of the times people do not understand what they're throwing away. Now, before you do that, if you do go out to a yard sale and shit like that, as you're bringing it in, cleanse that bitch, all right? You do not want to be carrying a little, you know, traveler with you, if you would. But anyways, I'm going to keep this short. We're at 21 minutes. I don't want to go off into a 30-minute rant yet. Eventually, those videos will get here. But yeah, that's on altars. I think I covered the bases on them. But if y'all have any questions, as always, let me know in the comments. And if you've made it this far, what's your favorite candy or sweet? Yeah, what's your favorite sweet and or candy? But yeah, until then, I will talk to you later. And again, thank you for liking. If you haven't, go ahead and hit that bell icon so you get all the notifications when I post and or go live. And subscribe. Share this to a group. Share this to a beginner's group. But until then, I'll talk to you later.